Let's talk about cross-media ownership. The TRI chairman, Rahul Kullars, shared some interesting perspectives on cross-media ownership. Now, he's constantly focusing on the fact that we need more plurality, we need more diversity in the opinions that we portray. And with one media company owning a television channel, radio channel, and print, we are sort of jeopardizing that plurality. But given the fact that we have almost about 70,000 registered newspapers and over 500 television channels, don't you think we already have enough plurality, or do you feel otherwise?
We definitely, it depends, what you mean by plurality. If you mean in terms of numbers, yes. But media is a classic long-tail business, right? There are few newspapers and few television channels which will get the bulk of viewers or the bulk of readers. And then there are thousands of them which will get some readers. There'll be these loyalists who read almost anything or watch almost anything. But that said, I don't know how well this can be enforced, right? Because there are already large conglomerates which are present across various media. And that's true in most parts of the world, right? How are you going to address that? The second thing is, I think it's also a very antiquated way of thinking to my mind, because the world has moved on, right? Most business is now digital. So there are publications which put out a magazine or put out a newspaper, but they also do a lot of videos on their website. Some of them run radio stations, right? Almost all of them have apps, so they're available on devices. Now that's cross-media, right? You don't need to own a television station to be cross-media, because at the end of the day, people don't watch a station anymore, right? People watch a program. People watch 3 minutes of it, a compelling video. Now that 3 minutes can be watched on a mobile phone, can be watched on YouTube, could be originating from a website which is not owned by a television station but by a newspaper. So what do you mean by cross-media? I think this definition might have worked in the 90s, right? But I don't think it works anymore. So this policy is one of those things that, to my mind, is outdated and dead even before it's born.
Okay. Also, you mentioned something interesting. We're living in a different world. There is a social media dynamic that's come into play. And now, given the social media, we're talking about plurality and ownership, which seems a bit retrograde. Kuller stays quite categorical on this, says, no, social media has got nothing to do with policy making change or anything of that sort. Do you agree with that sentiment?
No, it depends, because social media right now is a very, very urban phenomenon. I think what he's speaking about is really what happens at the rural level, right? But even at that level, I just think, speaking of cross-media, you'll have to look at two things, and I don't think they've looked at those two things. The first one is, what are you going to do with the existing conglomerates? Two, how are you going to acknowledge the fact that you live in a digital age and everything is digital, right? I don't need to print a newspaper. I don't need to own a television station. I could just be running a website and I could be doing everything. I could be doing radio, I could be doing video, I could be doing a weekly newsletter which is printed and distributed. How are you going to deal with that?
And what is your view on refarming, and how are they going to take this forward?
I have no idea, because I'm per se very, very opposed to anything that means a change in existing policy, because you have incumbent companies who are there. They've done business in a certain way. Most of them haven't done any wrong. They followed the law of the land. You just can't change the law on them. That isn't how business operates. I've always maintained this. Our government seems to think that you can keep changing policy and keep changing things as you go on. It's not dynamic. That's not how it works.
Okay. Now, last but as they always say, not the least, talking about Fareed Zakaria and the entire, incident of plagiarism, and he's a man of much repute in the field of journalism, and now he's facing suspensions. Being an editor yourself, what is your understanding of plagiarism, and how do you ensure that journalists, while taking inspiration, do not, copy text?
See, there have been huge advances in technology, right? So you know whether something's been taken from somewhere and all that. But despite all that, if someone wants to do it, the chances of them getting caught are probably 2 out of 10, even in this day and age. So I hate being in this position as an editor, but I think at the end of the day, in many ways, you are at the mercy of your reporters and your writers, right? Because they have to do the right thing. So what we do in the Mint newsroom is we have a code of conduct. It's enforced very strictly. It's communicated very, very clearly. But if someone goes out and decides to pick up something from somewhere and use it, there are chances that it will go through. The unfortunate thing is there are also chances that it will get caught after the event, right? It would have been lovely to catch something before the event. I think he, as being the kind of person he is, probably knows the consequences of this, especially in a system as unforgiving as the American one. I'd like to think that the Indian system is far more forgiving because in India, I think everyone tends to look at the person who's committed the error also, whereas in the US, I think the higher the position or the more the stature of the individual, the more heinous the crime. Whereas in India, I think it's a converse relationship. So I think the response of all parties concerned, including the man himself, have been pretty good because he offered an unqualified apology. He didn't blame it on anything, right? He didn't blame it on a research assistant, for instance, which he could have so easily done. And the CNN and Time, which are the two media outlets concerned, were again exemplary in their response. They said they were suspending it for his columns for a month and that they would take a call after a month. So that's where we are.
Thanks a lot, Sukumar, for being with us on this show. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for more and see you next week. Thanks for watching.